Hey, welcome to your next best step with Brek, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and we take our next best step through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, even the best leaders need a coach in their corner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to your Next Best Step podcast. Today, I'm here in the locker room. This is the Leaders Locker Room. And my hope, and has been since we started this podcast, is this is a conversation. The locker room is a sacred space for those who've been able to experience a locker room environment. And so today, we've got a special guest today. He is the founding CEO of Say Yes Buffalo, a nonprofit that has raised over $90 million to fund tuition-free post-secondary scholarships for all graduates of Buffalo Public charter high schools. He's led Say Yes for over 11 years, turning a vision into one of the most recognized educational partnership models in the country. And above all of that, this dude is a great dude, and I get to call him a friend. Dave Russ, welcome to the locker room today.
Brek, great to be with you, my man. Likewise, I'm lucky to call you a friend, so I'm looking forward to this time together.
Man, we are fortunate because the person that connected us is Mr. Jamil Cruz, and it's because of his goodness and his skills and capacity and just being an amazing human being. We were able to connect at an event where he was being honored and an award. And, I had kept hearing of Dave Russ. Hey, you got to meet Dave. And already knew and partnered with Say Yes, but I'd never had the chance to meet you. And so as good fortune would have it, we sat at the same table and had our first conversation together, and we've had many since then, which I love and cherish, man. So good to have you today. Hey, Dave, could you give us a little snapshot, family life, what family looks like? We just talked about, been a crazy. You're a coach, literally. Like, give us a little background on your life here in the Below.
Sure. So first of all, great to be with you, Brek. So I'm a father and a husband. I love both those titles, most important work in the world.
Yeah.
So my wife is Jen. We've got two children, Luke, who's 10, Emmy, who's 8. We are in the midst of travel baseball season, which is fun. I love coaching children. And, I think we got 3 rules on our team, like be a good leader, work hard, have fun. And youth sports can get complicated these days. And I love being able to watch kids develop. I treat sports or any activity, it's more about the transferable lessons in life than the sport itself. At this age, I believe in developing kids and they get a chance to grow. And more importantly, they get a chance to, learn to be really good humans and how to treat people with kindness and dignity and respect, to be good sports when you're winning or losing. Last night we had a game, my son was catching and he made an incredible play at home plate, caught the ball, tagged a kid out. Those are kind of boom, boom plays.
Yeah.
And the kid went down after, and Luke didn't celebrate. He asked the kid how he was doing afterwards and was down on the ground checking on him. So,
Oh, wow.
those are the lessons that, in life we're going to have tough moments, and there's tough times in sports. So, trying to connect those things right now and help kids have some resiliency and be good humans down the road, good adults down the road it's a fun thing to lead. And I don't take it lightly, it's a privilege
I know you
for sure.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking to so we're kind of on the opposite ends. I've got all my kids. I got my daughter, first child, she turned 30. And so I'm like, how the heck am I that old? I got a daughter that turned 30, and then I got a son, 27, another about ready to turn 23. And I'm grateful because we often talk, especially my son Caleb, who played basketball in high school and college, and now is just a gym rat, right? It's where all great basketball players end up, at the YMCA. No matter how good you are, in a Hall of Fame, you're going to end up being at the Y at some point. And we were just talking about so many times the lessons that were learned in the grind of Little League baseball, Little League basketball, football, lacrosse, all those things. And you don't really get to see evidence of it till they get up into adult. So you got to kind of, you get glimpses of it here and there, but you get to see the full impact of it. And so, man, I love that about you. Um, so let's talk a little bit about this is a leadership podcast, your next best step. And so I always want to have our conversations kind of built around leadership. And Dave, you and I have had lots of conversations about leadership, good and bad, the gaps, the other side of leadership. I often say, what's it like on the other side of you, really? And we have talked a lot about that. But man, what you have done at Say Yes, and I know that you know you've had a fair share of accolades, but you're always like, hey, this isn't about me, this is about we. That's the kind of leader that you are. But we also know that when we are starting something, and especially with a vision as big and as broad as what Say Yes initiated with, you know, um, that leadership it's tough and it can be difficult. And sometimes you're carrying a load that nobody really completely understands. So tell us a little bit about the idea, vision. Why would you have a vision and a compassion for the betterment of the education system for the city of Buffalo, and not just about your kids, but all kids? Where did that come from? What was the genesis behind that? And give us a little bit of a backstory with Say Yes, and then we'll kind of bring it up to speed where you guys are today.
Sure, Brek. So I do just have a fundamental belief that everyone has potential and not everyone is given opportunity.
Mm,
I think when you have people getting left out of opportunity, economic opportunity in particular, like deep issues can develop. So, our work right now is focused on the city of Buffalo and the city of Niagara Falls. I would say the same thing about our rural markets, though. I think there's talented people all over communities that aren't being given economic opportunity, right? So there's the problem. Like, there's no perfect solution, but I'm a solution guy. I believe in optimism, being an optimistic individual, living a positive life, and that there are solutions to challenges out there, even if they feel intractable or deeply entrenched.
mm,
So when we launched the work here with Say Yes, the first foundational piece that we launched was a scholarship promise to all the graduates of the public and charter schools. A path, a critical stepstone on the way to a good job is some type of post-secondary credential. Now, we view that broadly, Brek. It could be a certificate, it could be a 2-year degree, it could be a 4-year degree, it could be an apprenticeship. There's lots of ways to get a good job, but that credential was unaffordable
mm,
for children living in the city of Buffalo. I'll just give you some quick data. Right now we have about 2,000 students receiving scholarships, and 61% are income below 50,000, 31% income below 25,000. So there is no skin to give, as they proverbially say. You've got to, you got to remove the barriers. In our case, it was a financial one. So we went to work building an endowment that would support access to apprenticeship certificates, 2-year degrees and 4-year degrees for students in the Buffalo public and charter schools in perpetuity. So we are just putting the final touches on a campaign that will end up in the $67 million range. It'll be here forever, Brek.
wow.
It's a forever investment in children in the Buffalo public and charter schools. It'll be here 100 years from now,
Mm,
supporting young people. They can attend any public college in New York State. They can attend 100 private colleges around the country, all the local schools. And I think it was really built around two things. I think the first one was access for everyone. The second one was choice. So what I mean by that is, if you want to get a quick phlebotomy certificate and work on the medical campus, we'll fund that. If you need a 2-year degree in mechanical engineering and you want to go to Buffalo State University for that, we will fund that. If you want to go get a 4-year degree in business and accounting or finance, we'll fund that as well too. I think as we learned some lessons over the years, we found that we needed to add quicker pathways into the workforce. And
Mm.
that's when we added apprenticeships into our portfolio. Certainly traditional apprenticeships in manufacturing, but also ones in business operations and tech and the culinary field and healthcare. Just giving a wide array of choices for young
Yeah.
people to, discover their talents, find out what they like, and find out how they can get a good paycheck for
Mm.
doing that work, Brek. So you had mentioned a lot of people. I mean, this is incredible investment and generosity from the Western New York community and from New York State. It's a big campaign for Buffalo.
Yeah.
The state was a very generous contributor with $20 million, and the remaining 47 has come from businesses, individuals, foundations here in
I can't,
Western New
I
York.
I can't imagine that has there been a bigger campaign donation like to contribute for the greater cause of, I mean, that's got to be one of the largest in the history of the city, right?
It is, from what I've heard, it was
Yeah.
the culturals and the colleges have had bigger campaigns. I
Okay,
think from a
right.
straight nonprofit perspective, it
Yeah.
was the biggest. Feedmore has since launched a big campaign around food security, which is critically important too. But
Mhm.
when we launched that 8 years ago, from my understanding, it was one of, if not the biggest in the history of Western New York.
Wow.
But it speaks to this community, and people believe it's strangers helping strangers initially, Brek. And our role is to help those that are investing in young people meet our young people to help them get this degree and ultimately a good job in this community. And I think that's the beauty of our role. Like, I think we all have more in common than we don't. We want
Mhm.
a safe street, access to opportunity, access to a good education, access to a good job so that we can take care of ourselves and our family. And I think Say Yes has been a great connector in that regard, but it doesn't happen without real meaningful capital from this community to allow us to make this promise to children here in Buffalo.
Yeah. When Say Yes launched in 2012, I may have my facts wrong here, but you can correct me. But the graduation rate in Buffalo Public Schools was somewhere below the 50% mark, right? So somewhere
Yeah.
40, I see various things, 40 to 49%. And if you get specific about maybe like ethnicity and all of that, it can get even lower. But that's basically half the kids. The fact that that's where it was, and you last time we got together you told me kind of where it is today. Where is that graduation rate today?
So it's gone from 49% to 71%, Breck. So a 22 percentage point increase. There's still a lot of work to do. I do credit the professionals in the public school district for that
Sure.
work and good strategy. I think we've played a role in that, but I
Yeah.
do, credit the bulk of that to Buffalo Public Schools. We got some work to do, but those are good gains. They're meaningful gains. That's a lot more kids that are graduating high school, a lot more kids, their career earnings are going to go up from that. And then if they choose to, take advantage of the scholarship opportunity and earn some type of credential after that, all the data will tell you that there's going to be some good economic return on that as well, too. So I think this is good socially, and it's good economically for our city and our region.
Yeah. One of the things that I think has been kind of your secret sauce, your genius, is being able to create and develop coalitions like partnerships. Man, it's one of the things that I think is so unique and special about Say Yes is how every school they don't have just one partner, they have multiple partners. Can you speak to how the thought process? I don't know if there was another model or what inspired you, like to like this has to be a coalition of people coming around to make this thing happen. But can you give us a little background on what that looks like and maybe some keys that if there's a leader out there and they struggle with how do I build consensus? How do I build a coalition where we might not agree on everything, but we're at least aligned in a direction that's helpful for all of us?
Yeah, I'd love to take a little time on this one. So we are right now, we're considered an intermediary, which, when we were starting, which is bringing together time, people, resources behind a couple common goals, which in our case is more high school graduates, more post-secondary graduates, and better wages for young people after earning that post-secondary credential. when we started this, we were working to bring people together, and we didn't have a formal name of an intermediary, but we did have a common goal, which was the scholarship as a North Star and a promise for every young person in the public schools. But I do think Say Yes is broader than that. And it's about kids, it's about education, it's about economic development, and it's about, an anti-poverty initiative, in my opinion. And I fully respect the work that happens in the public schools. This is not redefining education. This is, respecting the work that happens from a governance, budgeting, classroom perspective in the public schools. But this is more than schooling. It's a broader concept that embraces services that schools traditionally can't because they don't have the budget to. And, these working public-private partnerships are few and far between across the country.
Mm.
In our case, we've got significant resources coming from private sector and from the state, which provides a scholarship. That's an incentive. It's a tangible reason for a young person to go to school and want to do well. But along with that, you've got the Buffalo Public Schools, Erie County, the city of Buffalo, philanthropic partners, the state. You've got dedicated partnership with the parents, with young people, with our union leadership, with institutes of higher education, with foundations rallying around this cause. And you can't do hard work alone. It takes all the resources
Yeah.
of this community to push the outcomes and metrics that we're trying to get to. I look at, county government, for example, who's supporting 3-year-old programs in the public schools, a mental health clinic in every building, a social service caseworker covering the buildings. Access to services directly in your public school building is critical. Otherwise, like, what does school matter? If you don't have proper food, clothing, shelter, like, it's not going to be most important. And that's completely understandable at the end of the day. So, that's why we have this, these investments are made that demonstrate return through this public-private partnership.
Mm.
So, I think if you kind of break a city apart, like, you've got your physical infrastructure and then the people, which is your intellectual infrastructure. And I think that's where a tremendous emphasis needs to be placed. I'm a believer in the place too, but putting emphasis in our case on the intellectual capacity, the intellectual infrastructure will pay gains for the city for generations to come. So I think we've got a good business model in place with compelling data behind it that shows outcomes for young people are improving. It's not all the way where we want it to be, but it's come a long way. And, when you look at Buffalo, I think that's a city redefining, what time, work, and political will can mean for young people.
Yeah.
It's problems everywhere. It's how we address these problems and see what's working. So there's, a lot of work left to do, but we've come a long way. And again, I think the investing in this intellectual infrastructure of our city was the right strategy when we launched this, 13, 14 years ago. And again, one that will continue for generations to come, Brek.
Mm-hmm. So what about real practical? Like how you're a stealth kind of leader, right? You're not loud and proud. You're not, like big. I see you as somebody who, I don't want to say quietly, but I think you have a stealth kind of way that you move and groove into some places, and you're able to adapt into a lot, whether, it's a lot of different places. And I know that's probably a developed skill, but not too many people are able to build a coalition around such a great cause. Even though it's a great cause, the leader and I've seen this happen, the leader itself is the biggest obstacle to building the coalition. How have you kind of share some of your secret sauce? Like, what does it take for a leader to be able to build a coalition?
Well, I think you have to be yourself, and there's a lot of ways to lead, right, Brek? I was fortunate earlier in my career to be around a lot of leaders that had a lot of different styles. And I think one of the things I am is I'm a listener and I'm an observer, which I think suits me well.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
that's the good stuff I want people to hear.
yeah.
Like a listener, and what else?
I said observer, but a learner from that is probably the more appropriate word. And
Yeah.
I've just come to find, Breck, you can get it right or you can be right.
Oh,
And
come
if you are pinned on being right, like
on.
it's
Ooh,
a losing strategy in my opinion.
yes.
And if you listen, if you develop meaningful relationships with people, if it's not transactional, which I don't believe in at all, and you can help other people find the wins they need, then ultimately, our work will benefit and the young people will find the wins that we want from them. So I'd boil it down to that. I mean, there's more that goes into it when you're running a large operation, but I do think your core principles and knowing who you are and how you want to lead are things that are foundational and that you need to carry with you each and every day.
Mm. Man, Dave, I think this is so true because I walk into, you know, organizations, leaders, all different kinds. It could higher ed, restaurant business, dental, uh, mortgage business. And so, I mean, the majority. I mean, I was just having this conversation yesterday with a young dude who's like 22 years old. And we were talking about being a valued centered leader versus an outcome centered leader and what that looks like. And he made this statement. He goes, how many organizations, companies actually think about that? I'm like, bro, I'm sorry to tell you, not very many. Not by my experience. And I think for you, um, the I think this is so important because this is the other side of Dave Russ. This is the I say everything depends on trust. We've talked about that several times, right? And
Yeah.
soil is the trust is the soil that all good things grow out of. And so if we're not tending to the soil, if we're not tending to paying attention to we're either making deposits or withdrawals from our trust account. And if you don't know the kind of leader you want to be when you show up when the pressure hits, you're not going to be rooted and ready. You're going to be chasing. You're going to be hoping for that yes, working for the yes. And so when you get maybe a no or a maybe, you go into scramble mode and now you're somebody that you never wanted to be. And
Yeah.
I think to what I've observed with you, Dave, over the years is that I know there's a lot of pressure. I mean, you've walked into some moments and some spaces where there was a lot of pressure, but you were already rooted in the kind of person, the kind of leader you wanted to show up in that room down the road. How important? I mean, whether it's a and here's the thing, because I think sometimes we think, well, that's just for young leaders, but I'm observing it from, leaders in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who have never really thought about more than just their outcome, just what they produce and how they perform.
Yeah, I think, being consistent, being authentic, and
Mm.
just knowing that hard work's going to take stamina, right? You got to stick with it. Um, I think it's right in line with what I was talking about a little bit earlier. You're going to walk into tough situations. You're going to hear no. You're going to hear no in life, period. I certainly still hear it, and that's okay. But we can remain ourselves and who we are throughout this. And, it gives you a chance to get back at the table. But even if it doesn't, that's okay, Breck. That's okay.
Hmm. Um, I know that you and I both have a high value on the development of people. We've been talking about, what's it like on the other side of say yes, the impact that it's having in hundreds of people's lives and the community stuff, but internally now 150 plus people that work for say yes, is that about right?
Yeah, a little bit more than that.
Okay. And so um like what is it how when we think about empowering people, empowering teams, let's start on what's the problem? Let's start with the problem. Where do most leaders get it wrong? Your
So,
observation. I mean, we're in the locker
well,
room, Dave. Let's be honest, bro. Let's chop it up a little bit. Where do you see where leaders, man, you just shake your head and you're going like, bro, sister, what in the world are you doing?
So I'm a strength-based guy, Brek, which I think you know. And I try not to put a lot of time and energy into what people are doing wrong or observing what people are doing wrong, and more so what they're doing right.
Mm.
I think that translates here too. Like I talked about being yourself. I think we spend, I don't know, we should be spending 80 to 90% of our time on strengths, if not more. And anyways, maybe I'll talk a little bit about like how we've built a team here, because I do
Yeah,
deeply believe in developing people
I'd
and
love that.
developing a team. And I think that's probably better than maybe the very few observations I have on what people might or may be doing wrong. I think first of all, like when you're trying to build something, it can't be ego led. It can't be about you. You're doing hard work. You're doing it together. You've got to share the wins. And I mean that sincerely. You see our Say Yes team shining all over the town and nationally, and that's exactly how it should be. Like no one individual should be getting credit for something we launched here, which was bringing, it was hard and hoping for hope and expectation change for a community that you care deeply about. And that was going to take building a really strong team to execute on, the hope that we had for our own community. So a little bit more about like the development part of this. So I do think like SayS can be a career launch pad for people. So
Mm.
people enter here, you're going to have a good salary package. We do market assessments every couple of years. We want you 10 to 12% above market. We're higher than that on benefits. We're higher than that on PTO. As importantly, was we want you to develop when you're here, having real meaningful professional development opportunities for the team. Since we launched, over 90% of our promotions have come internal, that you
Mm.
see a pathway forward for you, for people to move up and move out. I do think professional development and the salary benefits comp stuff that I talked about, to me, that is just what should be done. I don't think that makes us special in any way. I think where you can take the next step forward is, our team dresses for their day here. They're allowed to be themselves. My hope is people don't have to code switch when they enter this organization,
Mm.
that they feel that they can take risks here and it can be authentic. And that's hard. We all carry some baggage with us from
Yeah.
past professional experiences, and it's not easy to trust, Brek. And I know trust is one of the things that you believe deeply in. One of the lessons I learned from you is the soil of trust needs to be watered and nurtured. Did I get that right?
You did.
Yeah. I believe in that. It's like such a simple way to build a team, but so important. And that's, I think, resulted in a team that feels connected to the work, has the ability to take risks here, have a real ability to grow internally at SayS, and also to take SayS and use it as that career springboard to move up and move out. From mid-management and above, we succession plan. We use 70-20-10s and individual development plans. We help people switch careers. Our
So time
communications
out.
director.
So
Yeah,
you just said something 70-20-10. What
yeah.
is that?
So it's a tool that, here's an example, Brek. If you're a social service caseworker or, managing the program element of community schools, you're doing important work, really important work. So you're good at your job, you get recognized, and you get promoted to maybe supervising a team of social service caseworkers or community school navigators. And now you are helping a team grow in development. Your job is fundamentally different. You've got HR responsibilities, technical and professional development. You've
Mhm.
got some tech responsibilities, some budget responsibilities, and how have we been trained for those? So you often end up with a lot of like untrained team members progressing through a career, which can work. I just think, if the 70-20-10 comes down to is people want to progress to the next stage in their career, the best way to learn the next job is by doing it. So carving out those real experiences for somebody to take on the next role. So 70% of it is doing the job, Brek.
Yeah.
20% is mentoring, having 5 individuals that you can go to for specific topics that you
Love that.
regularly touch base with. You had mentioned at the top that leadership can feel lonely. I've never felt alone here. And I think that's because I've had great colleagues and mentors to talk through over the years here at Say Yes and elsewhere. And the 10% is what I'd call formal learning. It could be a conference, it could be reading a book. It could be, if you want to be a chief operating officer, talking to 3 chief operating officers and learning what the job exactly is. But, trying to get individuals as much experience as possible to do the next job, I think has ultimately been foundational to helping people progress in their career and be ready for it. How do you convene? How do you facilitate? How do you always show up and be prepared? Have agendas, have the action items on the back end, like learning those technical tools that matter to people so they feel their time is being valued, their needs are being met. and you're responsive, it's stuff that isn't always natural, but really important to your career as you learn, go forward and lead.
Man, I love that. I love the fact that you're intentional about the development of your people. Often I go into organizations and it kind of looks like this. They want to they need somebody to step into a mid-management position, right? And so they ask around, hey, this is open, apply, and then, maybe one or two people, or maybe just one person signs up, and they're probably the least prepared to lead, but they're the only ones who signed up. Now they get the job. And now John Maxwell, he talks about the law of the lid, right? And so on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, um, if you're a 5 level leader, you're not going to attract or keep level 6, 7, 8. Basically, if you're a 5 level leader, the people you're going to be able to attract and keep are the 2s and the 3s and the 4. And the whole purpose is not to keep us stuck, but to keep lifting the lid. Like, how do we develop? How do I go from a 5 to a 6 to a 7, right? And I see so often that in small organizations and large organizations, they promote without any preparation. And then they get this person in place and they're not set up to succeed. They've got some training, they got some technical stuff, they got some HR responsibility, but the human side, the all the human touch points that it takes, man, they've been a good producer. They've been good at what they've done, but they've never really even thought about who they are as a leader. And now, not only are they doing a poor job, but now they're impacting the team they're supposed to be leading. And I love the fact, Dave, that that's intentional and attentional leadership. You're not just hoping that, hey, I hope everybody, gets a chance to grow and scale, and we're rah-rahing you and we got your back, but you actually are putting a plan in place for those to be able to do that, man.
Yeah, hope's not a strategy, Brek. I felt that for a long time, you know. So, and I also think too, like as I talked through that, I'd mentioned the salary, the benefits, the comp. There are those technical part of being a good employer, which I think is important.
Yes.
I think what I'm interested in is the career progression and the culture that comes when you invest in people and give them the workplace that we all deserve.
Yeah.
And I think, you can't take your culture for granted. I firmly believe that culture is critical. We all own it. We all have to protect it. We're all stewards of it. And we can't get too comfortable or culture can slip.
Yeah.
So
It
it's
it
something we
just
all own.
drifts.
Yeah.
Culture drifts.
Yeah. So just because you're good at it today doesn't mean you will be
Mm.
tomorrow, And so we've scored really high on these best workplace employer surveys a number of years in a row. And I'm happy about that. I'm happy for our team
Yeah.
about that. But for example, we're doing an organizational climate and culture survey this year. And there's leaders all over organizations, Breck. And, I love that because it's anonymous and we get good buckets of topics when you see them bundled together that we can focus on to continue to be a better employer.
Love that.
Some of the best ideas that have come from, say, us have come from our team. Not always from, senior leadership, which we have good ideas too, but our team in the field often has
Yeah.
great ideas, and we want to acknowledge those and listen to those too. And because I do think when you stop listening or taking feedback, you can get in trouble.
Mm. Man,
This,
that's so true. Uh, when I often talk about it. If in fact, this young dude, he's getting ready to head over to Australia for an internship, and so he was just asking me some questions, and I said, I think the best thing you could do is especially as a young dude and a young American going into another country, I would put on the hat of curiosity and I would not take it off
yeah,
because um most of the time we have the hat of certainty, and we're just certain, whether, whether we've been around it a long time or, whatever that is. Man, when as a leader, if we can sit in the seat of curiosity, being humble, being like, hey, tell me what's it like on the other side of me. What does it look like, feel like, sound like? I'm a big boy. I can handle this because I want intel. I want to be better. I want to do better, right? And so I love that, the fact that you guys exhibit that and do that, being willing to get good feedback. How important, Dave, is, and we'll kind of wrap it up here on some things, but how important is it to get current feedback from boots on the ground for you as the CEO, but your executive, your leadership team?
I think it's critical. And you always hope people are willing to share that with you. Like, even I acknowledge in every organization, I don't know if there's always comfort sharing what's going well, what's not going well with your leadership team. But to me, it's really important. And, it's like you try not to get up on the mountaintop in a role because then you don't have to come down. I think you want to be as informed as possible as you're
Mm.
leading an organization. And to the point we were talking about earlier, those dynamics can change, needs can change. And I don't know if this is in line with the question, but I do think like, I care deeply about what our team does at work every day. I care about them as people more.
Mm.
And I think when people know you care about them, you're more likely to get the real feedback you need to
Yep.
meet your mission. Because at the end of the day, we're all here around a big mission, which is opportunity for young people in our city to earn a post-secondary degree and ultimately a good job. And if we don't have all the right information, we're failing our mission. So you got to build that trust, which we talked about at the top,
Hmm.
ultimately to meet our mission here. And you need real authentic feedback to get there, Brek.
Man, it's so true. You, I mean, spoke to it. I think leaders who position themselves more about what they want for their people than what they want from their people will actually have more opportunities to get real feedback. Because there's when I am for people, when I'm what I'm trying to do is for you, um, then that causes some safety. You feel that, you sense it, right? And when you are a leader and all you really kind of see is what you can get from your people, people don't feel safe with that. They may not be able to they may not be able to have a language for it, but they feel there's suspicion versus trust. And leaders that are for us, they provide, there's trust right there. And it's the difference between, as we said earlier, protecting that culture. What once was we know organizations all the time where, man, they were great for a time, for a good while, and then something shifted, and all of a sudden the culture's gone. You walk in, right? Maybe it's a restaurant, and you go, "What happened? This place used to rock, man. I loved it." Now it's like, and just that idea of being for your people, man. I love that about you, Dave, and I know that that's a big value to you.
Thanks, Brek. Appreciate you recognizing that, man.
Yeah, man. So
Mhm.
as we wrap up today, man, I thank you for taking the time and jumping on here with me. You know, I always ask somebody like, hey, for a leader, and that just something that comes to your mind, like what's the next best step? Maybe a leader struggling, thinking about like, man, I gotta build a coalition, or I'm trying to develop culture, or I'm getting ready to launch something. Just like what is a practical tool that they can put in their toolbox to be able to go, hey, here, there's 1,000 things, but here is something that I'd encourage you to do. One simple call to action that's going to help you take your next best step.
I think we're in a period of groupthink, Brek. I think learning to be an independent thinker, assess a situation, make a decision, get to your observations using facts is really important and can get lost right now
Mm,
when there's a lot of things that are hyper polarized.
mm,
Yeah, being an independent thinker, I think, is an important skill set. I think it goes without saying. I think hard work is a sustainable trait. I think there's a difference between a hard worker and a workaholic, but thinking freely, being a hard worker, having that stamina to stay
mm.
committed and keep showing up and saying what you're doing, those are all sustainable traits that will take you a long way in life.
Yeah, man, I hear you. Dave, man, thank you so much for joining us today in the locker room. I so appreciate your friendship, appreciate your leadership, man. One of the great leaders here in the city of Buffalo, and I know there's literally hundreds and at this point thousands of kids that are the benefit of that in your team. So thank you so much, Dave, and good luck on the rest of the baseball season, brother.
Thanks, Brek. I'll see you soon over there in the locker room. All right.
Yeah, sure enough. Hey, if this episode some resonated with you, man, share it with a friend. Go online, subscribe. We'd love to hear back from you. DM me if you have any questions. We'd love to talk about it. So until next time, man, keep taking your next best step, and we'll see you the next time.